Welcome to No Border, No Country, joined by Judge Matt O'Brien. And Matt, we've got a story that it's one of those cases where you say you can't make this stuff up. We've got a guy called Ian Roberts. You may have heard this story. It's gone all over the nation. Native of Guyana, who was serving as the superintendent of schools in Des Moines, Iowa, got picked up by ICE the other day, was hiding in the bushes when they caught him. He had $3,000 cash in his car, a loaded Glock 9, and a hunting knife. And it's just amazing. This guy's been here he's been here for over 25 years. He's been that long. He's been on a visa overstay. So he's long past time. He's had a deportation order against him. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, the first thing I'm thinking is, oh yeah, that's standard equipment for a school superintendent,
Yeah.
a Glock 9 and a hunting knife. I mean, this case is a travesty. This is somebody who should have been vetted by INS or the Department of Homeland Security, whichever one it was when he came to the United States. And you know, it's an object lesson in how easy it is to commit immigration fraud. So this guy managed to basically defraud his way into a $300,000 a year job where he was responsible for the security, the safety, and the education of American school children when the guy was a criminal.
So we've got a guest to talk about this. Brian Chisholm is a member of the House of Delegates in Maryland. And you may be wondering, this story was in Iowa. Why are we talking to somebody from Maryland? And Brian, welcome to the show. But can you tell us what the connection is with Ian Roberts to your state?
Yeah, Ian Roberts went to school here locally in Baltimore. I believe he went to Coppin State. And then when this happened in Iowa, on Twitter, we got an alert from Dustin Greggy who said, "Hey, this guy's got a lot of ties to Maryland. This guy that they're looking for as there was a superintendent in Iowa, has a lot of Maryland ties." So we started to look into him, found out not only was he a superintendent in Iowa, he held public school positions here in both Baltimore and in DC, and also was on the voter registration list. And we started to ask the Board of Elections, how is this guy registered to vote in the state of Maryland if he's obviously illegal? He's wanted to be deported, and not by the Trump administration. And this was eye-opening to me. It was the Biden administration that said we need to deport this gentleman. He is here illegally, but his resume was so long at that point. I think that he just kept living on his resume. Like I said previously, it said everything except for the most important thing: illegal immigrant. And you know, just to start in Des Moines, Iowa, that's a very large county. How people are getting these positions without at least a simple background check to find out if you're a U.S. citizen. When you apply for a job, it says on there on almost every application, U.S. citizen. Well, I think you have a duty, especially when you're entrusting somebody like this to so many children, to do a background check. Obviously, the guy's got a past, a criminal past, and then when the cops do pull him over, he's got a Glock and a knife. Obviously, you can't buy a Glock if you're an illegal immigrant. How did he get all this? How did we get to this position? And that's what really got us as the Maryland State Freedom Caucus in gear to find out what's really going on here and how many people do we have like this in the state of Maryland, because we have some of the most lax election voter roll laws in the country. And it's disenfranchising voters when you find out that you have somebody on an illegal immigrant here in the state of Maryland who's overstayed his visa, who is wanted by ICE, still able to vote in Maryland on elections.
Brian, your caucus sent an inquiry to the election board there regarding this. Have they gotten back to you?
Well, they said that they followed the letter of the law. Their original, and they were in somewhat of I guess, a debate with the federal government, because the federal government had asked prior to this Ian Roberts story, we want to see your voter rolls. And their answer was, well, we don't want to give them to you because you might use them for ICE enforcement. Now, I'm told over and over every year, There's nobody illegal on the voter rolls. Well, why would ICE care then? Wouldn't you want to prove your innocence and say, yes, here's our voter rolls? It proves to everybody that we don't have anybody that's an illegal immigrant here on the voter rolls. But I think it was a shining light to say, oh, yeah, we have some problems on the voter rolls. So we don't want to give it to you. And then obviously, when we reached out to the Board of Elections, we had reached out before about that very issue. And almost simultaneous, this issue comes on board. And they said, he didn't do anything illegal. We think he was accidentally registered to vote in the state of Maryland through the MVA. So I guess when he went down to get a driver's license as an illegal immigrant in the state of Maryland, he was automatically enrolled into the voter registration as a Democrat, by the way. And anecdotally, we have had, I know Delegate Matt Morgan has had a tremendous amount of emails come in and messages saying, hey, I just want to let you know this happened to me or this happened to my daughter. And what's happening is people are going down and getting their ID in the state of Maryland or their driver's license, and they're being automatically enrolled to vote. And oftentimes it seems as Democrats, whether they're legal or not. And that's a serious problem here in the state of Maryland.
Well, the thing that's shocking about this is I'm sure you've been told, well, we don't really have any way to distinguish whether people are citizens or not. And of course, that's now no longer true theoretically with the Real ID Act ID. So what this amounts to is that basically they're attempting to get people who are not citizens on the voter rolls, or at least that's what it looks like to me.
Right. And all they'd have to do is coordinate with, they could coordinate with ICE, and ICE could obviously do a quick search and find out if there's anybody on the voter rolls that is wanted by ICE for deportation or anybody that sets off alarm. Because, and credit to ICE, they've done a tremendous job going out and finding the hardened criminals, the ones that are creating havoc in these communities, and that's their job. I mean, they went after, murderers. And here in the state of Maryland, it is one of the most gut-wrenching things when I sit in my committee and we hear about all the sex trafficking. Well, it's done oftentimes through the illegal immigration community because nobody knows who they are. We have 250,000 people missing. They found 25,000. There's girls that go missing all the time in this state. And if we were to share more of our information, including the voter rolls, maybe they could start to identify some of these bad actors and go after them. And that would start to solve the problem. And it would also help us to purge our rolls correctly. It is almost impossible in the state of Maryland to get somebody off the voter roll. They almost have to come in person and swear who they are. They have to, right now, I think they have to sign a letter, send it to the Board of Elections, or they can call, and then they have to verify it to take them off. Otherwise, they stay on. And that's what happened with this Ian Roberts guy. If this wasn't ever discovered, I think he would have been on the Maryland voter roll forever. Because when you request a mail-in ballot in the state of Maryland, it is permanent. It goes out every year, every general election, no matter what, until they find out you either died, you're in jail, or you call the office or send a letter. It is just ripe for fraud.
There are a number of towns there in Maryland that allow non-citizen voting in local elections, but I think it's important that people understand the distinction here. Roberts was eligible to vote in state elections in Maryland. That means he could also vote for senators, congressmen, and president, correct?
That is correct.
So we've been told that, well, that's not happening on the national level. Illegals aren't voting, so there's no need for ID to be presented before voting. But this is really a strong counter argument to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is no doubt if he would have voted in 2022, 2024 with a mail-in ballot, it would have never, ever registered to anybody that he's an illegal immigrant. There's no way and they're admitting that. They're saying, well, he was accidentally registered, but they have no background check when those mail-in ballots are coming in, or because we're not looking at the voter rolls. They should be looked at beforehand to make sure, one, these people legitimately live in Maryland. Two, they're still alive. And three, they're a legal U.S. citizen. But we don't do that in general elections. We don't do it in any election.
So was this gentleman just a master fraudster, or does this say something about the state of public education in the United States that a whole passel of people with doctorates who were looking at this guy's background apparently didn't detect the fact that he was faking nearly all of it?
Yeah, and that's it does say something. I mean, it's it's so unfortunate to see what's happening in the public school system at this point. You know, COVID kind of shed a light to parents on what was really going on in the public school system. A lot of parents were upset. You see more and more people now opting for homeschool or hoping for charter school or just allowing your kid a secondary sort of education rather than sending them to public school. And public school now looks like they're hiring people without a proper background check. And it's all about resume building, which I think is unfortunate. You see more and more people with all these things at the bottom of a resume, you know, doctorate in this. And one, are people going back and checking? And two, what does that matter? Are you able to do your job and are you here legally? Those two things weren't found out about this gentleman.
Back to the voting rolls for a second. We here at FAIR are following these issues all the time around the country, and we've come to learn that when there's smoke, there's fire. So if some defender of this process were to say, well, Roberts is a one-off or he's a rare exception, I'm very suspicious of that. It sounds like if there was an intensive investigation done here, they'd find many, many more people like him on the rolls.
Yeah, and one of the things that I learned about, you know, over the last 2 or 3 years when I started questioning the Board of Elections on several things is they have what's called yellow sticker piles. Yellow sticker piles are so the Board of Elections sends out a notice to everybody in this state saying you have the ability to request a mail-in ballot. They're not sending the ballot this time. They get tons of letters back that say address unknown, uh, addressee moved, all the things that you see, and it comes back with a yellow sticker. It's my understanding that they do nothing with those files. They just pile up, and there's probably a list made of them, correct? So if you had access to that list, you know these are still legally registered voters. Nobody really lives there. Nobody's responding there. Well, how easy is it to fill out a mail-in ballot for them? And how many of those could actually be people that are here illegally? And with this case that we're talking about, it proves that those votes could have been cast and nobody would have ever picked up on it because we don't even do voter ID here. All you need, and we don't even really have signature ID here. All it would be is a ballot coming in with that name, that address, and a signature at the bottom. And there's obviously a large list of people that aren't responding to the mail we're sending out from the Board of Elections, but can be used to vote. It doesn't, and they never get taken off the voter roll at that point.
It's shocking to me. Have you noticed any difference since the Trump 2 administration took over and emphasizing immigration enforcement? Does it appear that any of this is starting to get any better?
I think, unfortunately, in the state of Maryland, we almost want to double down here. So when the Trump administration started talking about deportation and we're coming, we almost were like, please come to us, please come to us, please come to us. I mean, we just threw that out there, almost as if we are so much more in favor of the illegal immigrant in this state than we are for the tax-paying citizens. It's almost mind-blowing to me that they have such dislike or hatred towards this president that they want to be the contradiction to him and say, no, we're not really worried about that. These are people of our community. They say it all the time, especially down in Annapolis. They're just undocumented. Well, that doesn't mean anything. That means they're here illegally. So I think that they've looked at all of the Trump administration and said, we're going to do everything we can to run in opposition to that. And that's sad because I believe right now that President Trump has a pretty good feel for the pulse of America and even most Marylanders. People want safety first. It's our number one responsibility as elected official and as a government. It should be probably the only thing, in my opinion, on many things, is you have to provide safety. And we don't want that. We evidently don't want that. You could see that even with Governor West Moore recently in Baltimore saying we don't want, the National Guard to come here. It's almost like we don't want anybody to see what we're doing here. And that's a very dangerous place to be.
Brian, the undocumented thing kills me because
Yeah.
think of that term. Next time you get pulled over by a state trooper or a police officer driving in a city and you don't have a license, if you told them you're an undocumented driver, it's not going to go very well. And yet, when this happens with immigration, with all the national security and public safety and other interests that are implicated, we act like that's a legitimate excuse. Like everybody who is here illegally is here with permission, but for a document they need to go pick up at some government office, when the fact is they've committed a crime. They violated 8 USC 1325 to come into the U.S.
Well, I remember distinctly when these motor voter laws were implemented, and they were universally hailed almost, with everyone saying, this is democracy in action. Everyone should be able to easily sign up to vote. But now this is just another example. A lot of these laws, as practiced, are ripe for corruption that leads to voter fraud. Is there any push to take a look at these laws, reform them, or outright take them away?
Yeah, we have a series of laws or bills that we put in every year. They go in front of Ways and Means, and they end up in a committee desk. I mean, if there's anything, any sort of push that we want more transparency, we just want fair and honest elections, it is just met with a quick no. It's going in the. We'll hear it because in the state of Maryland, we hear almost every bill that's introduced, but they don't do anything with it. They'll say, well, this isn't really happening. And a lot of it really is, this isn't really happening, but we're glad it is. I mean, they know it's a problem, but they don't see a reason to want to change the problem. They almost accept the problem because they feel like it is a problem that advantages them to a very high degree.
Does anyone have any indication of how great an effect this is having on the state of Maryland? I mean, going back to the education issue, with a high illegal alien population, this must impose an enormous cost just in the schools alone, from like kindergarten through the university level.
Yeah, I think actually it goes back before that. As I said, my wife works in the school system and she deals with infants and toddlers because it's the way the program works now. Public schools are now taking kids from infants on up, and that's a tremendous cost to the state taxpayers. And as you know, in the state of Maryland, it's almost as if we have a smaller and smaller portion of people that are picking up the tab for so many people that really aren't paying anything. And you guys know, you're experts. I hear it all the time. Well, these people are paying taxes and we need them because they're doing the job that nobody else wants to do. Well, I think that's a bunch of crap. I've never met somebody that says, I don't want to do that job. All of a sudden I'm being told that we don't have enough people to do the job. Well, that's nonsensical to me. And to say, well, they're paying taxes. Well, nobody knows that. Okay, they're paying sales tax, but that doesn't necessarily mean when they go to the store, that doesn't necessarily mean they're paying that huge sum that we're paying to public schools now, $20,000 per student on average in the state of Maryland. And then you look at the schools like Montgomery County, Baltimore City, Prince George's County, that price tag is huge. You're talking about $25,000, $30,000 per student. And that's not including a lot of the medical stuff, which, when you start to add all of that up, it is a enormous number that fewer and fewer people now are having to pick up. And I think that's why you see that we are the fourth highest migrated state out of in the country. We're 50th out of 50 in labor costs and fourth highest in migrated state. I think some people love this state. I love this state. I think it's beautiful. We have the oceans, we have the mountains, but we are so hostile to the average Maryland citizen and taxpayer that they give up. I've said it on the floor. I am waiting for the day that I can stand up and say, somebody came to me and said, I can't wait to retire and move to Maryland. Nobody says that. Everybody tells me, I can't wait to retire and get out of this state. Nobody wants to, the only reason people stay anymore is for their family. And that's a sad place for such a beautiful and historic state.
One of the major industries in Baltimore is the Johns Hopkins Hospital and all of the companies that are associated with it. And last time I spent any time near the hospital, it was unbelievable to me because not only are the patients all people who seem to be from somewhere else, most of the medical staff is as well. And is that something that you've noticed in other medical facilities across the state?
Yeah, I think you see more and more of it. Baltimore's interesting because it's the home of some world-class hospitals, and you've seen them change dramatically. And we run a crazy we run socialized medicine here in the state of Maryland. People can say whatever they want. We run what's called a total cost of care. And then all the hospitals basically have somebody, the Health Savings Cost Review Commission sets the rates for all of these hospitals. So they're telling the hospitals what this procedure costs, which is, and then they all they share that money across the whole landscape of hospitals because they know there's certain hospitals that have so many undocumented or illegal immigrants coming in to their emergency room for basic stuff. But that's a tremendous cost when you go into the emergency room. We're 50th in the nation, and we have a huge gap between 49 and 50 in the state of Maryland in emergency wait times. What does that tell you? That tells you that we have a serious problem in our hospitals, in our medical facilities, because they're being overrun by people and we don't have the staff. And that might be the answer to your staff question is they don't have people either get frustrated and decide they're gonna work in a different county, different state, or give up their occupation altogether because it's such a frustrating system that now we have to go out and we have to hire illegals to take care of illegals in the hospital system, is what I would assume. I don't know, you know, who they're getting to work in there. They might be legal, but it's definitely a changing landscape quickly.
Brian, where can people go to learn more about what you and the Freedom Caucus there are doing?
Yeah, you can follow us on X on we're just under the Maryland Freedom Caucus. I think it's MD Freedom Caucus. They can follow us on Facebook, Maryland Freedom Caucus. We'll send all our contact information out to you. We have our own website, but it just got developed. I think it's a freedomcaucus.org. That's being launched. That's a great place for us to find information. But we're pretty active with all of our press releases and we're on Substack. I don't know if you guys use Substack, but the Freedom Caucus has a Substack account now. So we do our best to put all our information on that, X, Twitter, YouTube, all channels.
Brian Chisholm, thank you for taking the time today, and please keep up the fight.
Thank you. I appreciate what you guys are doing. Thanks for having me on.